You've been talking about the prospect of this happening for a while. Your feelings this morning?
I think you know my feelings, John. I think the president had a range of better choices, and he picked the worst one in front of him.
What gives you confidence, Neil, that that's actually going to bear out during his purported tenure, should he get confirmed, given the fact that he has had a different rhetoric over the past couple of months and, frankly, convinced President Trump?
Well, I mean, it's one thing to convince President Trump. I think it's going to be quite another to convince the members around the FOMC table. Mike McKee was talking about his record during the financial crisis, which, just to remind everyone, is horrific. Because, I think anyone would know at the time what to have done, and yet he was worried about inflation even as unemployment was rising. Not exactly what you'd expect to see from the greatest jobs president that God ever invented. That being said, it's not so much that he's hawkish, it's that he's always hawkish and always, typically when he's wrong in the same direction. I mean, what you want in these positions is someone that has an open mind, that's a flexible thinker. So I think his newfound dovishness looks very suspicious. And, maybe that's one reason why Powell sticks around past May. If he does, he'll be a weak Fed chair. And even if he doesn't, he'll probably be a weak Fed chair because, look, the FOMC, it's bigger than one person. And you can't just get in there and exert your will. There are things that he can do with respect to reforming the institution. But again, has he run a large thing before? I have my suspicions about whether he's actually able to affect that outcome also. So, we'll see. Again, as I've said before, he's an avowed free trader. He used to criticize politicians for not pursuing free trade deals. And one of his other criticisms, of course, is that, the Fed tends to encourage fiscal irresponsibility through their interest rate policy. But of course, the federal government's been fiscally irresponsible despite high interest rates. So I think he has the causality backwards, really. It wasn't so much that, interest rates were low, not because the Fed was trying to bail the federal government out, but interest rates were low because the economy was weak.
Neil, you said something there that I want to follow up on. You think that the nomination of Kevin Warsh makes it more likely that Jerome Powell stays on as a governor after his Fed chair term is up. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't be the case. Nothing about this process has been normal. And, as I say, you can talk about the sort of golden age and maybe Kevin Warsh believes in the golden age. But, look, he's been hawkish his entire public career. OK, and he's known for making good economic calls. He is not. So, again, this is all, you can't just go in there and say, I think we're in a golden age. The proof of the pudding is in the eating, and the people around that table are going to want evidence before they sign up for something like that, which is why I think it's unlikely that you can just expect them to go in there and deliver a series of interest rates cuts.
So, Neil, that's the analysis. When you're thinking about markets and what you tell clients this morning on how to act accordingly off the back of that, what would you suggest?
I think it's, you can't expect, so this is, I think, of the four candidates that were out there, I would say that Warsh was probably the worst. But that doesn't mean that you just dump all your stocks and punt the long end of the, the Treasury market right away. It takes time for these things to show up. I think the primary risk is that the president risks getting duped. And that's because if you are able to engineer a series of rate cuts up front, the risk with Warsh is that you may have to take them back aggressively later. When have you ever seen Kevin Warsh make the dovish case for monetary policy and convince someone of that outcome?
Well, it sounds like, Neil, he was able to do that with the president actually in the Oval Office. What do you make of the process now? We're going to have to wait and see play out in Congress. Do you think he actually sticks based on what we're hearing from members of Congress like Senator Thom Tillis, if this takes a very long time and the market continues to push back?
That's one potential. Tillis has said that he's going to slow down the nomination process because there's an open investigation. So we need to see what happens with that investigation. But I would just say that perhaps, I mean, I'm not a political analyst, Anne-Marie, as you know, you are. But I would say that there's probably time for pushback from the president's base. A member of the MAGA movement, Kevin Warsh, is not. I mean, let's be clear. He works at a traditional GOP Republican establishment think tank named for a president that presided over the Great Depression.
Right. So you think potentially?
So there's, I suspect there's time for the president's base to do to Kevin Warsh what they did to Harriet Miers back in the day.
Right, and she never made it to the Supreme Court because of that pushback that Congress saw on President Bush. Do you actually think, given how you had interpreted Kevin Warsh and his body of work over the course of the years, that actually for what Trump wants, he'd better off just be sticking with Jay Powell type?
Well, I think, look, it's hard to, I think from the beginning of this process, the Treasury Secretary has been very wise to kind of avoid putting his thumb on the scale. That's what Mnuchin did, and it cost him dearly. But if the goal is to put your prince on the Fed, the way to have done that would have been to elevate Christopher Waller, someone who has a track record of convincing his colleagues to the dovish position, while simultaneously showing a penchant for reforming the institution. I mean, it's not like Christopher Waller is someone that was unable to kind of knock heads a little bit within the Fed, is my understanding. But that would also have freed up 2 seats, right? Because the likely outcome at that point would have been that Powell would have gone, and so then you have another seat you could fill in addition to the seat that is going away this week, which is the Myron seat. So the way to you have to think about it like the Supreme Court in a way. The way to get the policy and remake the institution in your image is to get your people on there. That seems at the margin, I think, a little bit harder to do with Warsh.
Neil, just finally, if this doesn't go well, and let's see how it plays out, but if it doesn't go well, who does the president get to blame this time?
Well, I mean, it's himself. I mean, the Fed job under Trump is a thankless job, admittedly. I mean, because you're going to sort of get his ire very quickly. So I understand why there's a reluctance among some to want to do it. But as I said, I mean, there were a lot of good candidates out there. Some of them I didn't like, some of them I did. But I think of the lot, I would say, for most of the people I talked to, but even just more importantly for myself, I think that Warsh was the least favorite of the candidates being thrown out there.